Jay will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone to the Dr. Brown, I guess it's the first school board meeting for 2015. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
I must be getting old, Dr. Brown. It's the years just keep slipping by, but always happy to have an opportunity to meet. We haven't met in a little while, and it's kind of good to see you, Dr. Brown. You know, it's all good. And are there any modifications?
I am unaware of any modifications.
Wow, for the first,
Sorry, there's a supplemental personnel report.
When did that come out?
It was just added in the Dropbox today prior to the
Yeah, I think
board
it's,
meeting. I'm not sure.
well, I knew there had to be a modification.
so there's a supplemental there.
I didn't see it. There it is. And
I wasn't aware of it.
This one's added divided by 2. Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna add a supplemental that's dated today.
I believe.
Yes.
Are we good?
We're gonna have to give people time to look at it though.
Take a look if you can. The board is checking out a modification to the personnel report. It will be added, but they do need to at least take a look at it. So, and then we will move on. Chris, Judy, Max, anything? I suppose I could open my Dropbox.
Yeah, I think they did earlier.
And I'm not sure I got it. Oh, there it is. See, I looked early.
Came in 2 hours ago.
Are you all right, Pat?
Yes, I am.
No, I mean with.
Oh, yes.
I- in general, I'm sure you're fine, but.
Things are quite good,
that's
and
good.
I really enjoyed the supplemental personnel report.
Okay. Plus the Christmas and New Year's.
I'm good, I'm just... That's not something we do every day.
Judy, Max, have questions?
I see a couple people resigning for personal reasons, and I'm looking for replacements, and that's,
Not always replaced.
I don't know, but 2 of them were elementary school teachers.
This is from
I don't know.
You should have seen them.
Okay.
Do you want to ask a question to Judy and get the answer? Bob's lurking.
Working. That's how.
Do we have replacements for the 2 that resigned due to personal reasons, childcare?
Which report are you on?
Supposedly the.
I think there's one on.
There's one from South Hill.
Oh, yeah. There's a posting for the unencumbered position.
Oh,
I
okay.
worked with Bob on that. It's option timelines started.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, good.
Asked and answered.
It's not part of vacancy.
for the students in the room, we do vote on things, but it always is nice when the board actually gets to see and review that which we vote on. So that's what we're doing right now for a few minutes. Not typical, but it does happen. We don't like to read on the air, but it's okay. Is everybody all right?
Yep.
All right. Moved.
It's added to the agenda.
Okay.
Without objection.
Okay, very good. Added, and now we just we'll go into hearing from anyone that wishes to speak. And there perhaps is one person signed up. If, nope, there you go. And I can't really read your name. Go ahead and state your name and
Diana
feel
Cole,
free.
and guess what? I just graduated from Ithaca High School.
Congratulations.
Actually, I did graduate from Ithaca High School in 1964. And I'm a native of Ithaca, so I'm really vested in what I have to present to you. And I don't know if any of you read the Ithaca Times, but I'll pass these around and you can take it, about this anti-bullying course. And I've been actually working since the very early 90s in the program of studies at the Ithaca High School to get a healthy relationship skills course in the high school. And I think having the bullying aspect so vivid in our lives now that I'm wondering why we are not having such a course. I'm a marriage and family therapist over 25 years and practice now. And I just believe, I'm sure like most of you, that we need a lot of prevention of the problems that people need to go to the therapist for relationship issues and all kinds of emotional issues and abuse. So I'm really wanting to get the community involved. I've already talked to Mel Brown a couple times and the mayor just recently, and they said that I needed to get the community behind me. I've been working on this like for 20 years, talking to various people in the school system. They all say it's a really good idea, but then when it comes to implementation, it doesn't happen. I'm willing to actually teach the course free. So I'm here to represent that, and I also would like to have some answers to my questions about how to get a petition going legally, because we've already contacted the clerk and she couldn't really tell us how we get a petition in the community to have this happen. So that's one of my questions. And then whether it's okay for me to be at the curriculum committee. Is it open to the public? So, and I would love to have any questions, in my 3 minutes here about what I really, if there's any questions about what I'm trying to promote here and really prevent a lot of the abuse that's happening. And bullying happens to be the one that's in our face all the time. And why aren't we talking about what causes bullying? It really comes from our homes mostly, but also from other places. And it's just my dream. I have a dream to have this happen so we take care of our families and our children.
Thanks, Diane.
Any questions?
We'll finish up with a public comment, and eventually we will get answers to your questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Anyone else wish to speak that did not sign up? I'm looking. No one right now, so we'll move on to student reps. And I think Ithaca High is here, and LACS is not, correct? Okay.
All right, so to start off some of the news, Ms. Fisk's global class took a field trip to the Johnson Museum of Art to learn a little bit about some European art, some aspects relating to the current curriculum. I believe they also got a chance to make some art of their own, some printing skills. And the interesting thing about this trip was that Ms. Fisk got a lot of the money through a teaching grant. So that's a nice, interesting little bit of money saved. Also, the local news mentioned our own little news network, WRED, here at Ithaca High. And so we were on the news, and they were also on our news. They featured on our morning broadcast to the students, and that was, I think, quite enjoyable for us to watch the professional newscasters along the junior newscasters and so forth. And then we also had State Representative Lifton and Senator O'Mara from New York visit the school and just take a tour around learn some things. I think that was very nice.
Oh, okay. Last Friday during the school day, 8th graders from both Boynton and DeWitt were introduced to IHS. Linker leaders volunteered, gave these students their first look at IHS with a tour. In Culp, a panel of students answered any questions that the middle schoolers had about classes, clubs, and like high school in general. We really appreciate the efforts of these high school students to give a warm welcome to these 8th graders who will be entering high school in the fall. And in sports, Richie Burke had his 200th win in wrestling, which is an amazing feat. And girls and boys hockey and basketball teams, as well as boys swimming, are all starting off the winter season right with numerous wins. And notably, varsity boys basketball has had an unbelievable 6-game win streak. And Code Red's build season started last week. Students on the team are putting in countless hours of work daily after school. And we know with all this hard work and dedication, Code Red is sure to have another great season.
First of all, welcome to all the seniors here. It's nice to see so many of you fulfilling the government credit. And Happy New Year. Picture it. About 100 spectators and 20 performers of spoken word poetry, dance, music gathered at our hallowed Culp Auditorium for the 2nd annual Ithaca High School Talent Show. The crowd on numerous occasions was ecstatic, went crazy, standing ovations, applause, very riveting performances, and the important part is $350 was raised for our drama department. Nice. The Ithaca High School Brain Team, what are they up to now? They're 51st in the nation. 2 teams, which is very good, by the way, and they're expected to go up in that ranking in just a few weeks. 2 teams competed in the Garden State competition in New Jersey, placing 8th, and our math team is tied for 15th in the state, and went to a trio of competitions, they did very well at all of them. An IHS staff member inherited an abundant amount of socks of a wide variety, never worn before, and is giving them out to students in need so they can combat frostbite in this cold weather of getting into the sub-zeros and look fashionable all the while. In May, Mr. Pisecki, you mentioned a grant given for the robotics, a teacher at the high school given for a Lego robotics program, and we're seeing that implemented. It's very nice to, learn engineering and programming with Lego robots, going back to our childhood, but learning the principles of engineering all the while. Fun, fun, fun. And that is all I have for this evening.
Thanks, Connor. Word responses? Inherited socks?
That's right.
Okay. No, I'm just trying to picture. Go ahead, Brian.
Do you want me to answer the policy question about a referendum, or do you want to answer that as our policy maven of the evening?
You go ahead.
All right, it's policy 1050, policy on referenda. Although I think the board, let's see, except that the board shall not be required to place any proposition on the ballot which is within the exclusive province of the board, and I believe curriculum is, so I don't believe a referendum on a particular curricular item would be placed before the voters, would be the answer. So I think you've actually hit on the right thing, which is to come to the curriculum committee.
Okay, where is that? And
Their meetings are posted on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
At the end of the agenda.
That's right, it's at the end of tonight's agenda.
You can
Judy Max, go ahead.
email me. The next one will be 2 weeks from
January 27th, 4:30.
at 4:30, but we already have what we're going to talk about then, so I would have to have time to fit you in, but it would be fine. But I would talk to you before then.
okay, I don't know what your email is.
Judy Maxwell.
Okay. At
Oh, no, it's just,
It's on the website,
you
too.
just put it out, Judy Maxwell, and it'll get there. No, it's, she is that well known. But it is, if you just go to the website and if you go to the board members and all contact info is there. All board committee meetings are open to the public. Anyone and everyone is welcome to come and are always open. So feel free. And certainly connect with Judy Maddox and the curriculum committee. And we'll, anything else by the board? And we'll go on to the consent.
Can I ask, I don't think one of my questions was answered about having a petition.
Well,
A petition to the community.
Well, anybody can do a petition anytime they want.
Of any kind.
Yeah, of any kind, I mean,
Because it said when we looked it up, it's something about legal verbiage.
if you were looking to do a referendum, a petition to have a referendum, yeah, you'd have to have the exact language as
Okay,
part of it, which you would have to draft.
Right.
But to get a community petition, it doesn't have to be in a specific way.
No, we've seen all kinds.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
thank you.
No, thank you, Diane. Consent agenda.
I'll move the consent.
A second.
Second by Chris, any questions? Not all that long. Middle of the winter's great, there's not all that much work, so, but unfortunately, we're back at it. Anything else on consents? We have everything. Right, Eldred stepped out, minus Eldred, all in favor? That's everyone. And Dr. Brown?
Thank you. I'll be brief. Two quick items. As Max already touched on one of them, just wanted the board and community to know that I had an opportunity to escort Senator Mayor and Assemblywoman Lifton to two buildings, Fall Creek and Ithaca High School last week. I won't speak for them, but I think they were very impressed by the teaching and learning that they saw happen in our building. They said to me they were impressed by the level of engagement and the level of instruction. A quick story, in an elementary classroom, we walked in and some amazing things were happening. Young people were working on some pretty complex algebraic thinking in small groups throughout their room. The Assemblywoman had a tough time recognizing who the teacher was in the situation, but she knew that every young person was engaged and working very hard. The senator asked one of the young people on our way out, so how does your teacher get you to work this way? And what lesson is this? What connection is this to the Common Core? Because you know all the politicians want to talk about the Common Core. And this young person responded, well, this is recess. And that was an indication of how our young people work, the relationships that we have with our educators, because the teacher was there and it was a recess. But they were working on some deep thinking and some work as well. So it's just a great trip. We had a great visit with the high school and some tours and some classrooms there. So just wanted to update the community on that. And they're looking to come back and visit some more class spaces as well. One quick announcement, informational item. We've had on our website dates for the IHS principal search and feedback sessions. We had announced several dates. I'm just here to say that we're going to have to reschedule all of those dates. One of the things I promised to do was to speak with IHS staff first before we met with other stakeholder groups and the students also. But we met with a bunch of other stakeholder groups, and because of snow, cold weather, ice, sleet, you name it, we've had some of those things canceled. So once we get in front of the staff and students, we will then reschedule those other meetings. I know that PTA sent out something today advertising a meeting for the 21st, and we will be in touch with them about needing to probably reschedule that conversation. But just wanted folks to know that we haven't forgotten about needing a permanent principal at Ithaca High School, and we are working through that process, and we are working as hard as we can and most efficiently. And those are two items I have.
Well, very good, Dr. Brown, and we will continue. There is events going on tonight, and we might as well go ahead and continue our work, and folks can go do other things later. But goals and priorities survey, Dr. Brown?
Yes, the goals and priority survey. And I've thought long and hard about how to present a lot of quantitative information to you in the community. And I was planning to go through a bunch of slides that have some very detailed numbers about what we heard from our community, and I'm going to talk about what the survey was. I've changed my thinking about how to present this information, so I'm not going to go through slide by slide and line item by line item, because I think it will bore everyone in the room and make me look like a bad presenter. So I'm just going to post this presentation, and all the data, all the quantitative and qualitative information we found is on the website. It's in the public Board of Education public Dropbox, and it's in that Dropbox for the board to see right now. And you may be like me, it took me some time to work through this data, and there's so much information there. I wouldn't be able to do it justice with a 5 or 10 minute conversation with you tonight, but we may come back with more conversation about this, and I'm willing to talk to anyone about what we learned. But again, this survey was administered by a third party, which is key for us. And here are the things that we look for, which is in line with the information we collect as part of our balanced scorecard. And the folks who don't know, we have what we call a balanced scorecard, and you can find that link on our homepage, and there you'll find the Board of Education priorities and goals and some associated metrics. We track everything from the relationships teachers and students have with one another to communication efforts and how often folks feel like they've been heard by the district. So a number of metrics that are aligned with the Board of Education's goals and priorities. And here are some of the examples of some of the things we ask. Interest in classrooms, rigor and relevance of curriculum. We asked about information regarding events and communication. What I'm happy to report is that we had a significant increase in the number of folks who responded to this survey from last year. We get close, around 1,800 folks respond this year, which is up significantly from the response rate of around 700 from last year. We still want to have many, many more in future years respond to this survey. But again, we're happy with that kind of an increase in the participants. And as I've said, I have slide after slide, and this is not very much presentations in like, but there's a bunch of information that I'm going to put out there for everyone to look at and go through. I will speak to some highlights from the data, just some bullet points that I think the community and you will find of interest. And we're going to also put out a press release, and a letter will be posted to our website analyzing the data also. But again, you can go through the individual slides that are in line with every question that was asked and what the response rates are. And you'll see we have 2013 results and 2014 results. And you'll see, with some areas where we've increased significantly from year to year. Some areas, while we've increased, we still are not meeting our goal. For example, we have that goal of 70% of the information will be coming from the district in a timely and effective and efficient way. I think that's how, I know I may have botched that somewhere, but it's something like that, 70%.
Yeah.
And we're meeting that goal. We were getting close to that goal last year, and now we're exceeding that goal. And in some areas where we, for example, that particular metric is our opportunity to be heard. While we have a goal of getting to 70%, we aren't quite getting there yet. Now I'll just go through a series of bullets I think you will find of interest. 74% of our students report that the work that they do in school challenges them to think. As a district that goes after thinking and has a vision statement of 6,000 plus thinkers, that was a good one for me to see because we're exceeding the goal that we had set of 70% there, and that's up from 66% from last year. A large majority of our student respondents, 86% of them, indicated that they have a very positive relationship with at least one teacher. That's key. I was very, very happy to see that so many of our young people responded with having a positive relationship with the teacher. Students agreed that their teachers encouraged them to do well in school, 87% of them, and also encouraged them to ask questions when they don't understand, 84% of them. So again, some very positive information from our students. 74% of participating community members said that the information they receive from the district is meaningful, timely, and clear and engaging, and that's up from 69% last year. This was a key one for me, especially as someone who's heard all the complaints about websites over the years. We did a significant website upgrade last year, and I was looking forward to the information about what folks thought about our website. And what we have, the improvements made to the website was seen as beneficial by 71% of the people who responded to the survey. And as you look at the data, you will see some trends there. The majority of folks get their information from our school website and our newsletter. So the website and the inside are where folks go to get the majority of their data, their information about the school district. And you'll see also that newspaper is continuing. We noticed this last year that fewer and fewer folks are going to the newspaper to get information about our school district. So which is key, as a district who have the priority of communication being key. We are doing a good job, I think, of telling our own story. So then there was a qualitative aspect to this survey too. People could respond qualitatively, just with any comments that they wish to hear. We had around 100 folks who commented, and there was a range of things, and trying to synthesize it and analyze it. We had, you can see here, folks feel like we continue, the folks who were responding in written form were saying we need to do a better job of engaging stakeholders. So again, we continue to always think about how we can engage every aspect of our community. And you'll see some Yeah, Kristen, you know, we're learning more and more about communication, and some folks want us to have consistency across the social networking platforms. And I can tell you that is a challenge to have the similar posts on Facebook, Twitter. Now folks ask us to have an Instagram account. So all things what we didn't talk about 2 years ago, folks are now demanding that we have that instantaneous communication tool up and running, and that is consistent across platforms. So
That's what I look for.
I know. I couldn't make it to say.
Instagram?
Oh, I mean, across all my accesses.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're on Twitter, right? Yeah, you follow me on your smartphone there. And again, I won't bore you with this, but we gathered a lot of information about school events, how many folks are attending school events and how often. And we're seeing more and more folks attend school-related activities, which we were hoping to see. And then I have a whole section on student results, and I sort of talked about some of these things, how many students who felt like they had a positive relationship with teachers, how many would recommend our school to a friend, etc. So, again,
And Dr. Brown, this
Yeah.
was, for students, this was 6th grade through?
yeah, 6th grade, secondary schools, yeah.
It would be nice to hear from more students, I would think.
Yeah, and we're working on ways. This year we tried some things with providing some computer lab access. We need to do some more to provide that kind of access, or some type of access to incentivize students to do it. We stopped short of saying you're going to do it in every class on this day, and maybe that's something we can think about in the future.
Well, again, it would be nice to have it voluntary and open and get honest input. Well, clear, yeah, not coerced.
Again, open, just email me, ask for a meeting to talk about this information more. We're using this information as we continuously look to improve. Much of what we did with the website was coming from the first iteration of this survey, and other things we've done have come from this survey. So we do pay attention to it, and we appreciate all the folks who responded.
And surveys are pretty consistent in the workplace. I have one every year that they push us for 100% participation, which it's always kind of a pain, but similar type of survey as you go down through the various questions. So companies of all different sizes find them useful, and so I think so. It sounds like it's something you'll continue to try to build on.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Brown?
That's all from me.
Questions on goals, priorities? I'm not seeing it. No, go ahead, Brad.
How is this going to be shared with like the teaching staff? I mean, a number of these questions speak to teaching, and while some of the answers are in the 70%, that means there's 25% who answered negatively. I mean, is this being shared with the?
Yeah, we're going to do it in several ways. I'm going to write about it and share it in the staff update and the Insider also. So we put it out in that way, but we hope to have building level principals. We haven't had much conversation with principals yet about the specifics regarding this data. Have them lead some conversations at their staff meetings about it.
Anything else? I guess we're good, Dr. Brown. So on to professional development update.
Looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to invite some friends to the table. Dr. Landau and some others.
Bring your chair.
Yeah. How many can we get?
A lot. We're going to be out of order. I think we can handle
So, Dr. Brown, I didn't know everybody was coming.
Dr. Landau is they need your government.
I am bringing more and more people with me. So, good evening, everyone. Tonight we wanted to provide an update about professional development in the Ithaca City School District. About a year ago, Liddy Coyle led a Board of Education work session around the instructional coaching model. And what came out of that, both that session and as we monitored that all throughout the year, we felt like we had a very successful model in about half of our schools. In last year's difficult budget process, one of the things that we had to scale back fairly drastically on was professional development, not only with instructional coaching, but just with some other initiatives that we had, maybe with outside consultants and some monies that we had to pay for release time, etc. That all being said, that was a hard process for everyone. It was a hard process for the people here, who I'll introduce in a second, and a hard process for the whole district. That all being said, we have really and truly re-energized around trying to do everything possible we can to keep the mission and vision of the district moving forward. And so tonight, with people speaking, you're going to hear some themes. First, I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm going to talk about some of the themes that you'll hear. I have Lee Ginenthal here, who's a teacher on special assignment with us, and has been for the past several years. Liddy Coyle, master educator. Don Lisi, director of technology. Lily Talcott, master educator. And Lynn Vanderwerk, who's the evaluation officer. Some of the themes that we'll be talking about tonight are a focus on the district vision, 6,000 plus thinkers, and the mission, engage, educate, and empower. Some other themes that you'll be hearing is, it's kind of a cliche, but doing more with less. Really trying to strategically use the resources that we do have in a powerful way. Trying to kind of rethink some of the things that we do. One thing in particular that you hear more about is curriculum work. In fact, as I was thinking just a few minutes ago, we shouldn't really even be using the phrase curriculum work. It's really curriculum design. And how does engaging a group of teachers in curriculum design, how does that become professional development in and of itself? How do we keep sort of trying to advance, despite last year's difficult budget, how do we keep trying to advance the idea of job-embedded professional development? Thinking of our district mission, how do we move forward things like the district's equity work? We still have equity mentors, a stipended position for teachers in every building. We have teacher leaders stepping up on a daily basis to help lead conversations and activities in their schools around that. How do we move forward the work of inclusion in the district and to create a welcoming and engaging environment for all of our students? That's the thing that everyone up here is focused on a daily basis, and we just represent, we're just really people who put the structures together and do some of the facilitation. Our teachers on a daily basis are doing a lot of professional development that's informal and inspired by their daily work. Our principals are doing more with professional development this year than they probably ever have. And one thing that you'll hear about in a little bit that we're really excited about is we're doing more with our education support professionals this year than we ever have in the past. And that's with a smaller budget and with less people. So there's things that we're really moving forward with, and we're moving forward with aggressively. We're going to end our presentation tonight with some thoughts and some dreams for the future regarding professional development, because this group here and all the people that we engage with never stop thinking about better ways to do things. But we do want to report on some current state things. And so, first thing we want to just briefly touch on is January 30th. Coming up in a few weeks, we have a PLC day, a district-wide PLC day. On this day, we're very excited to try to reach every single employee in the district. So we're going to be doing some differentiated professional development on this day. We're not all gathering together in Culp. Elementary teachers are gathering in an off-site location, which we're getting at a huge discount. Thank you, Green Star, in the community. But our elementary teachers are getting together for a few hours to hear the story of the curriculum process, to both share some of the exciting work that's happening, to hear some of the reasons why we're doing it, and to engage in some conversation around it. Kind of late morning, they'll be heading back to their buildings to work on some teacher-directed PLC work. Our secondary teachers will be gathering in Culp. They will be hearing a keynote from Dr. Brown and Don Lisi regarding our Google Apps for Education rollout and the future of the one-to-one Chromebook initiative. After that relatively brief keynote, they'll be going into 2 different breakout sessions that morning to kind of learn about a continuum of things, kind of basic skills, how do I get in? How do I use Google Apps? To some very high level things. One really cool thing is we've reached out to neighboring districts, and we have teachers from other districts attending on this day as well. And most of these breakout sessions are led by our very own educators, so we're excited about that. The other part we're really excited about on this day is that we are really trying to engage with our paraprofessionals, our educational support professionals. Dr. Brown is doing a really targeted keynote just for them at 8 o'clock that morning. They will have options to either join teachers in the work that teachers are doing, or attend some sessions that are targeted to things they've identified they want to learn more about. Common Core shifts, implementing IEPs, working with challenging students, things that they are doing on a daily basis and they've asked us to learn more about. So we're excited to provide some of this on this day. Secondary teachers, when they're done with their part, and ESPs will be returning to their buildings to do PLC work. Amanda Verba and Bob Van Kuren are also leading some professional development with Employees Association folks. Transportation is doing some targeted professional development for their people. So we are really trying on January 30th to reach every single person in the district. We're also trying to allow some time for people to process, people to have some time to work in their teams when they're back in their buildings, and to get ready for future challenges. So we're very excited about the January 30th. We are going to move. Liddy Coyle is going to talk about some of the initiatives that she's heading up. Her role as master educator this year has a really intensive focus on professional development, and so she's been really leading and facilitating a lot of this work.
It's really big. It's so big it doesn't fit on the screen. That's the worst we're doing. Yeah, that's okay. So really, as Matt was saying, we're really thinking about the curriculum development as professional development and working with teachers to have a mindset shift and think about their pedagogical beliefs, and we're moving towards interdisciplinary curriculum. We've talked in curriculum committee about this, and having the teachers working to develop Ithaca interdisciplinary curriculum. We're at different levels, at different grade levels. Elementary's been working on this. We're going on our second year, and middle school is moving forward with that, as well as the high school in different forms. So this is how we're really supporting teachers to give that quality first instruction. So we're giving them something to work from, to meet the needs of kids, to engage kids. I saw one of the pieces of feedback that you shared, Dr. Brown, was I think only 50% of kids said that they felt that the teachers knew how they needed to learn. So that was a little distressing for me to see, and I thought, okay, there's something we need to think about as we're developing this interdisciplinary curriculum. We believe this is a way to engage kids, but we need to get the students' voices in this curriculum work. So I think that's something that we're going to further work to really empower our students to let us know, is this the way that it's working for you? We've had over 40 elementary teachers attending our work sessions to develop this curriculum. In the middle school, we have over 25. In high school, they've been working in teams to work on their curriculum. Moving forward, we're working to how we can involve more teachers, and how do we support them in their classrooms with this and trying out drafts of this curriculum. One of the ways we want to do that is somehow to bring back at least the spirit of the instructional coaching model, the job-embedded professional development. And we know we're going to have to be very creative with that. We have very limited resources, but as you guys know from last year, we're really tied to that belief system. This is how we can support teachers to move forward. So combining the curriculum work with job-embedded support, we think is really a way that this all comes together and we can work to support our students.
I'm the teacher on special assignment. Is the operative word. There were more of us last year. In terms of working with ESP staff, those are the folks that work with the most challenging students. They come with the least amount of formal training and have been provided with very little or no training through all the years I've been in the district. So last year, we started to work on that. The challenge is, how do you fit that in the day when they're supposed to be working with kids? So one of the things we did was we took a look at the parent-teacher conference day, and we provided district-wide training for all ESPs on that day. We started with surveying folks, finding out what it was they needed, and we provided sessions. We had 2-hour sessions last year, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, nonstop. And we got hundreds of folks through training on the 2 parent-teacher conference days. We also did intentional training on the PLC day. Oftentimes what happens is, a week before we say, oh yeah, we've got to do something for the paras. This time we thought in advance and we planned and we gave them choices. Choice is one of the most powerful tools for differentiation and empowerment. We found out what they wanted. We created a menu using a lot of BOCE staff because we started to develop a collaborative relationship with BOCE's trainers. And that's something that's continuing this year. The other thing we've been able to do this year is extend beyond those days to training in the buildings. A couple of the principals have gotten creative, and we've been able to come up with monthly training in some buildings. There again, topics that ESP staff are asking for training in. The report so far, they love it. Interesting thing that comes up almost every session, they say, are you doing this training with teachers? You know, they really need this stuff too. And it's kind of interesting just to hear that. Unfortunately, we aren't doing as much of that as we used to. Hint, hint. Okay, individual work with teachers and principals. I'm working my way through the district based on need of individual teachers, individual principals. Folks email me, they say, you know, I need help with this. I've got a challenging class. I'm not sure how to do this. Principals will call up and say, you know, we're changing how we're delivering staff development this year. I need help in running staff meetings and facilitating them. So I provide that support through most of the buildings in the district. When I'm working with teachers and paras and principals, I observe, I give feedback, I team teach with them, I model lessons where they can observe, share instructional practices. I do work with whole grade levels of kids, providing training for the kids and teachers. So that's ongoing stuff, and it supports a lot of the work that's in the special ed improvement plan that we'll talk more about at a future meeting. With BOCE's staff, with Jen Gondek, the inclusion specialist, we've set up inclusion PLCs for both elementary and secondary teachers. We have co-teaching workshops that we're offering on a rotating basis throughout the year. Folks who participate in that also get individual support in the classrooms where we come in, observe, give feedback, team teach, and that's ongoing. So that's just a tip of the iceberg of some of the things that is going on.
So I'm going to speak to our technology PD that's going on right now. As you know, we have a one-to-one initiative that we're in the midst of right now in Google Apps for Education that we're in the process of rolling out. So next year, Chromebooks in every student's hand in grades 4 through 12, reallocating our iPads to students in grades K-3. So that's a shift for students. It's also a huge shift for teachers, and we know we need to support our teachers in preparing for that shift. So there's really 3 kind of main areas that we're going to be providing support to teachers throughout the spring and the summer, and it's really hard to see up there, so I'll just speak to it. One of those areas is in basic tool training, right? So how to use the Chromebooks, the iPads, how to access and use the different apps and programs available on those things. Really, that basic tech support to make sure that teachers feel comfortable and are able to move fluently across the different platforms and programs available to them. In addition to that, training, providing professional development and time for teachers to engage in thinking around instructional planning in a one-to-one environment. All right, so when every student has a device in their hands, what does that mean, and how I think about how I plan for the time in my classroom and the time outside of school, how that's going to be used. How about the physical space? What do I need to think about around that? How might I transform what I'm doing right now in my classroom? And then what sorts of tasks and learning experiences am I going to be designing for my students? How will that look differently, right, than it does maybe today? And how might it look the same? So providing that facilitation and time to really think deeply about the pedagogy when you have one-to-one devices in the classroom. And then another kind of bucket of professional development is around digital citizenship for both teachers and for their students, right? So with one-to-one access, anytime access, how do we really engage our students in thinking about and learning how to be productive and ethical citizens of a global world online, right? And thinking about what are the components of digital citizenship, and then how do we create intentional opportunities to teach to that within the curriculum. So it's not an add-on, but it's part of what we do, and that we're supporting students to really develop those skills that they'll need throughout their lives. We have some resources available, luckily, to help us in these efforts to provide this training and professional development. We have 2 instructional technology integration specialists that we have from the RIC as part of the services we've purchased from them. They're working with teachers individually. They'll also be planning different opportunities for our teachers to engage in. We have our tech mentors still in all of our buildings, and they're kind of our, in many ways, kind of the first line of defense on those basic tech support things. And then in providing some modeling and coaching to their peers in their buildings, knowing that there's limitations as full-time teachers. They can't kind of provide that in-depth support that our specialists can. And then we really, it's been very exciting to just discover the depth of both local and regional kind of expertise and early adopters. Pretty much every district in the region is engaging in this work in some way. And we've been making connections to leverage those individuals and people right here in Ithaca that are already working with these tools and doing amazing things in their classroom to support their colleagues in developing skill around technology implementation. We'll be using release days before and after school times and online opportunities to support teachers. We'll be leveraging our BOCES COSER to provide subs for those release times. We have money to do that. And then also we're going to be working closely with TST BOCES and the component districts to hopefully put together a regional summit this summer around Google Apps for Education and leveraging those tools to transform instruction for students.
All right. We also have some targeted, very specific professional development that we're working on. Lynn and I talked to you last year in 2014 about the Teaching is the Core grant, which has to do with assessment review, action planning, and the non-required component, which is assessment design. Right now we are in the midst of the assessment review or the assessment audit. So we have a team of teachers working with us from primary all the way up to secondary. We're meeting with them again on Thursday, and we're going to look at the artifacts that we've collected. Things like student assessments given in a given class period, all the way to our SLO assessments at the beginning of the year. And we'll be looking at those in relationship to rubrics. Now that part, or this component of the Teaching is the Core grant, isn't exactly explicit professional development. It's much more subtle, right? As people are looking at these rubrics and thinking through things like authenticity in assessment or reliability or validity in assessments. And as we get into the assessment design, it'll be much more like traditional professional development of quality performance-based assessments, authentic performance-based. The second one on the list is Therapeutic Crisis Intervention, or TCI. This is focusing in on the social-emotional piece. So we have several folks within our school district, psychologists and social workers, who are already trained in this specific system and strategies for de-escalation for students who are in crises. And it also aims to prevent crises from occurring in the first place. And so we'll be having an upcoming 3-day work session. And that's starting just at the elementary, and then we'll be moving on. The last one on here that I'm going to speak about is around teaching children with autism. So we've been offering several webinars and some on-site training around anything from communication, working with students who have autism, who struggle with some communication things, all the way to working on very specific concepts through something called applied behavioral analysis. So we've partnered with the Racker Center, and we did a full-day training with them. It was mostly an early childhood focus, and that was wonderful. And we had a training yesterday that was it was just a webinar-based training around being a one-to-one aide or assistant and working with a child with autism. So that was offered. So we have a range of things, and we have some other ones that are coming up as well that we'll be continuing to offer to both teachers and education support professionals.
We wanted to, we've already given some indications of what we want to plan for and for both next year and upcoming years. We do really want to try to bring back instructional coaching, whether it's a slow bring back or a fast one, depends on a lot of variables, but we spend a certain amount of time every week probably discussing ways to bring it back. One of the things that we should also mention is we are really partnering with BOCES at a much higher level, and you know, you've had some references to it from the different folks sharing. We actually went to BOCES in the summer, and Barry Durfell's there, the assistant superintendent who's in charge of this part of their program, and he had his whole staff together, and we asked them kind of difficult things. We kind of basically said, like, does it make sense for us to always come up to you for workshops? If you're looking at Ithaca's participation, are you happy with it? How would you want to improve services for us? And to their credit, instead of it being really awkward, they were like, let's figure out how to do this better. And so one of the things that we've landed on is some of the BOCES staff developers. I'm blanking on the name, but their ELA staff developer, Beth Dreyer. We're doing something this year where she's kind of embedding herself at Enfield Elementary School. Jennifer Gondak is embedding herself at Caroline because they have a very new special ed team that came together this year that's not used to working together. We're looking for other ways to do that. I say to their credit because when we broached this idea, they immediately jumped on it and were like, how fast can we get started, and we really want to do this. So we see a willing partner in some of the new ways of thinking about things. Some other things that we're really looking at in the future, and Lee talked about this, is special education. Special education is not just the province of special education teachers and paraprofessionals. It's everyone's responsibility. How do we do a better job with staff development or professional development that makes all of our schools and classrooms a welcoming environment for all of our children? The same could be said for English as a second language. The state just passed some new regulations that requires professional development, not only for ESL teachers, but all teachers that work with ESL students, general ed, special, whatever, to have more specialized training in that kind of instruction. So we know there's things that we're doing now, but things that we also are planning to implement at a higher level. And finally, the last thing I want to say is the word momentum is tossed around a lot, and that's something that we take really seriously. And so we have worked really hard to not lose any. In fact, despite less resources this year, we've worked hard to keep the momentum moving forward at a really fast rate. And I really want to credit the people sitting here with me, they're a joy to work with in terms of this, and they bring energy to this work every single day. And like I mentioned, all of our teachers, all of our paraprofessionals, all of our building administrators, principals and assistant principals have all really started to look at this in a different way. The Teachers Association, ITA, has really tried to work with us on some changes that we've had to do in delivering professional development. I want to thank them for being really open to talking about some of those changes and working with us. So we want to build, we want to grow professional development, and we're very excited about what's coming, and we have a lot of challenges, but we're very excited about some of the things that we have in place. And we would love to have questions. I have stopped saying that after a few years, and this may be the first presentation where we made it the whole way through, and hopefully that never happens again, and you have lots of questions, but we would love to have your questions.
Chris, go ahead.
How do you identify the teachers who need the technology implementation, TD?
So I think at this point, everybody needs something. It's really about differentiating those opportunities and offering the basics for those that really do need the basics, and having opportunities available to others that feel like they already have a pretty good grasp but need to think more deeply about how to leverage those tools to change them.
So how do we identify the priority?
Right, so I
They're
think it's
self-selected.
right now it's self-selected,
Oh, really?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and we're working on ways to kind of like label or tag our professional development opportunities to help teachers in knowing what is appropriate for them based on their skill set.
There's always something to learn.
There is something.
But, go ahead, Chris.
This is more of a statement than a question, because a lot of you spoke to the process and the I always struggle when things don't make sense, and I give you guys a lot of credit because it seems that there's been a lot of thought to the process and identifying the need and moving it forward. You spoke to identifying what the teachers need with the classroom specifics, and thank you for doing that, because I believe this is all value added. And the student, and identifying the student piece to the teacher piece, without getting deep into the weeds, how are you doing that? Give me one example of how that works. That makes sense. So
Of identifying
the teacher's needs with PD, anyone in general, to the student needs or to the classroom needs.
Well, like with curriculum, we're really working with where are the students, and I think it's bigger than curriculum. It's a whole, actually I would say a PLC approach, like looking at where a class may not have grasped something, and giving teachers the time and forum and safety to reflect on that and then experiment with something new. So we're like with the curriculum, we have drafts of units and say, go give this a try, and then come back and talk with it about it with your colleagues, and like, well, that didn't go well because the kids just like, they didn't respond through an assessment or through some feedback, and so then we reflect on that and we adjust and we try it a different way.
So actually, that's very helpful. So how are you identifying how the kids didn't get it? You know what I mean? Where are you getting this information from? How we,
Right. Well, honestly, we were really good at that last year when we had instructional coaches. It was just
Okay.
no,
Sense of
You got the point.
you
I walked
set
right
me up
into
for
it.
that.
Yes,
No,
yes, I did.
but also, we're asking teachers to be more reflective and to be able to step back and say, so I just asked kids to do this, and now we're giving them, some facilitation around what did the kids do for that? What were you expecting? So one of the pieces we're working on throughout the district in many different ways, but through the curriculum work is one big way, is having learning targets. So if you have a learning target before you start a lesson, then you know where you're headed. And so it's sort of like a little summary in your head. Like by the end of this lesson, I want kids to be able to say, I can, analyze the author's purpose. Right? That's sort of a long-term learning target. But if then if I know that's my goal, then at the end, I'm going to ask my kids, what was the, you know, and so I have something I'm working towards, so it's like a little encapsulating what I'm trying to get to, so now I know what I want to ask kids at the end, because I know where I was trying to get. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Just to add to that, beyond the instructional piece, there's the teacher-student relationship and doing a lot of work in social emotional areas, getting folks to recognize when we're in a powering relationship with kids versus a permissive relationship, and it appears that typically those are the two places we go. We're either powering or we're permissive, and figuring out where that mid-course is, where it's collaborative with the kid. So we're taking a look at student need and teacher need and having a conversation and collaboration in finding that mid-ground. And, you know, a lot of the training starts out with working with challenging students, but it becomes apparent pretty soon on the way. It's stuff we need to do not only with all the students, but with each other as staff members.
Any questions? Oh, go ahead.
I almost don't have a question because I've been flowed. I mean, this is, I'm proud of you guys. This is fantastic work. Of all the things we talk about a lot. I think this is as important, if not even more important, than knowing where every dollar is. I see a flow here. We get this right. Glenn can show us that in a particular class, those third graders do very well. And in the fourth grade, we're seeing kids had a significant drop off. If you guys can then identify what that teacher is doing with that curriculum, and how he or she may be able to come towards the light, so to speak, and wrestle with what happened well in the previous year, and if Matt can manage all of this and come up with a way to at least identify when every situation is going to be individual. But at the same time, there are groups and other school districts who have got a handle on how this flow works. These are powerful tools we're giving these kids. Lee, you mentioned the problem child. You know, you're talking about me, and not in the way you think. One day I want to show you guys my 5th grade report card. I was that kid who was desperately interested in social justice in my community. I was desperately interested in helping my classmates who were going down the toilet right next to me. I was desperately interested in doing something other than what the teacher wanted me to do at that moment. And once they figured that out, I was not only a better student, I was actually useful. Right? So to me, this is the mother load. This is it. You know, we have to talk about budgets. We have to talk about superintendents. Whatever. I want to focus on this. We're talking about this. So no, but seriously, as you guys get some examples of flow, how this syncs together in your work. And you're sitting there almost lined up in the way it would work. I get the joke, but you know, you share that with us because this is what Chris is asking. It's not easy to see.
You know, I'll speak to that first. I will admit because there were changes, you know, I mean, it sounded like we had this model for a really long time, but then we drastically changed it due to the budget, and I think it took us, you know, a few months to kind of get our legs underneath us, so to speak, in terms of how are we going to work together in a different sort of way. And so we really started working, this started the summer retreat with the admin team, but we really started working with administrators more closely. We really started to change, in a way, I think it's powerful. I'm not sure everyone agrees, but, you know, I think sometimes when people think about curriculum work, it's just, you know, just some people planning a unit or a lesson, and they're not sharing it or they're just using it on their team. We're really trying to have that curriculum work feel and look and act like professional development. We want people to come out not only with maybe a unit to teach, but hopefully a different way of looking at approaching content or a specific skill or both. So it's been a bit of us sort of learning to work with each other in a different way, and it's also been us trying to reframe some of the things that we have been doing in the past in a more powerful way moving forward. And you know, one of the things Lee's always really good at reminding me is he's the only teacher sitting up here right now. Last year when Liddy led that conversation about structural coaching, she was probably the only administrator. I had to miss that meeting, but I think it's a different shift, and so that's something, you know, we're trying to sort of figure out, because that's a bit of a shift for us, and we want to go back to that. We really think. Again, this is towards the future, but we really do want to expand the role of teachers involved in professional development through something like coaching. But that being said, we also do try to be data oriented, and I think this Teaching is the Core grant. It's not necessarily the most exciting thing to talk about. It's, you know, people looking at assessments and doing an assessment audit. You just hear the word audit itself, and it, you know, it doesn't lend to sitting on the edge of your seat necessarily. But we really are excited about a group of teachers, pre-K to 12, you know, who asked to be a part of this team. They're looking at a good selection of assessments used across all of our grade levels and really trying to critique them and look at them. We think this audit, this process that again is like a grant from BOCES, is really going to help us get data that's even better. Because we feel good about a lot of the assessments that we use, but that's probably not a good thing to feel, right? We should have an audit that tells us, oh my gosh, this one is not giving us the kind of information we want. That's what we're already finding out a little bit, and we're hoping we get more good information like that. So that assessment model, you know, we don't want to soft sell that. That is something that we are always looking at. Lydia and I talked for probably 45 minutes this morning, unplanned, about assessment information in relation to RTI, serving struggling readers better. How do we get not necessarily our reading specialists, but our classroom teachers, how do we better support them to teach struggling readers? This conversation never ends. So I gave a long answer, and these folks can chime in with better thoughts than me, but that's kind of a start, and we're just kind of figuring out this year and feeling good about it.
I think a big thing in terms of what we're all about is changing culture. That it's not just a matter of passing information on, but if we want to change what's happening in the classroom, the way we interact with administrators, with ESP staff, with teaching staff, should be exactly the way we want those staff members interacting with kids. So that whatever we do in principal meetings should be just like what happens in a classroom. And that's a big shift. And when enough folks are doing that and it becomes second nature, that's when the culture changes happen, and that's when we really have momentum.
Loss of power.
No, expansion of power.
Loss of power from what used to have the power has to give it up. I'm interested why Dom had nothing to say.
Why are you looking? Dom was our plan to answer all of the technology questions that we sure were coming, but
Anybody want to ask one?
but now you have a stage. Dom, just go.
Geez, thanks. I'm actually here in silence, of course, but yes. You know, it's interesting, yes, it's really truly reflective when you look at and listen to what the group had to say of the shift away from putting the emphasis on the device. You know, we're doing this one-to-one initiative, and I think that's really why I'm sitting here, because it's a fairly large initiative for the district. But I didn't need to speak because it doesn't become about the Chromebook or the iPad or whatever we're putting in the classroom. It's much more about teaching and learning. So I was glad to be silent because I think that's really important.
I'm still hearing from a lot of staff who will openly admit to me who's challenged in this area, that they also are challenged and hesitant to admit it. And I think more staff development, I'm using, the simplest, what some people would call simple tools. I think there are going to be teachers who can't do the Chromebook.
I think we have to operate from the assumption that there are some people starting at zero, right? And making sure we have opportunities for those teachers as well as somebody who feels like they are an expert across any platform or device, right?
And that's how we've set up the 30th.
Yeah.
So the 30th, after a brief keynote, they're going to have a menu to work from, and they're going to, if they want to walk into the, I don't know, we're calling it like a 101, like how do I log in? They're going to have that offering there, as well as some very specific offerings of how it's being used in classrooms, how it's being used, for very specific things. So they're going to have a menu to work from, and that's the self-selecting. And that's just the beginning of that.
And for the ESPs, whenever we have district-wide training, there's always at least 2 offerings in technology for them.
But I think a teacher who's brave enough to say I'm at the beginning, that day will get through maybe 2 offerings and be nowhere near where everybody else is yet. So are you going to continue so that teacher can
continue all throughout the spring, summer, next? I mean, I think this is a multi-year.
And also, different, PLCs will be brainstorming ways to support each other. Departments, I've already heard about several departments at the high school where some teachers have already, with just private Gmail accounts, been using a lot of Google Apps for Education. And so I'm sure there'll be a lot of, this is how I've done it, here are ways that you can do it. But we completely recognize every single person is going to be on some part of the continuum of this. We, as an administrative team, have been trying to use Google Apps for the past few months. We have had our struggles with it, so we have been trying it ourselves, having our own struggles, so we all recognize that the same will be for everyone else.
We're working on the platform that will be, but yeah, you'll be looking at having a different device.
Oh, well, hold on. I mean, I have to change something. Wait a minute.
You just had it.
I saw this coming.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I really don't know why I'm always the last to hear these things, the last to know. But Dr. Brown, we'll talk about this later.
We'll provide professional development.
Right, exactly. I was going to say something, I see a hand though.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I have a 3-part question about technology, if that's okay. I'm a student, and I've heard a lot about technology initiatives the past few years. And around the school, we kind of hear a lot about iPads and Chromebooks and stuff like that. And in the past few years, I've also heard a few complaints from teachers and students about technology. So I'm wondering, when you guys are making these decisions about, new technology initiatives, what types of student or teacher or parent feedback you're taking into account? So that's the first part. Second part of my question is, do you have any empirical or statistical data from the past few years that shows that technology initiatives have resulted in increases in student success that can be directly attributed to those initiatives? And the third part is, there's some talk about using this technology to prepare students for college and career readiness. And I'm wondering how you plan to measure that specifically, and how you plan to inform the community of the impacts of these initiatives.
I can take a shot at it. Maybe all 3 parts of the 3-part question, but I may lose some steam, so help me with the second part and third part. I'm already lost. What was the first part? Complaints. I will respond to complaints about learning initiative, whether the technology one or not. There will be complaints about a change initiative. And if you think about everything from PLC work to instructional coaching, we've heard from folks about what they don't like or like about any initiative. So that is going to come with anything, but your question was about what kind of input have we sought, and how do we make those decisions? So it goes back 4 years now. We've been having conversations in our community, in every building, about the shifts that we wish to have occur in our classrooms for adults and young people. More specifically, over the last year, we started, I believe, shortly after the first day of school, with what we called instructional adaptations conversations. I don't even know what that means anymore, but it was a cool way to get people to come to a conversation where we were talking about, quite frankly, the Common Core shifts, where we put some verbs up, and the verbs that are most prevalent in the Common Core, all things that we have been saying for a few years that we wanted to see happen in our classroom, everything from problem solving, collaboration, creation. We then talked about the tools that would help us do that better day to day. And we talked about the different apps that are now free and how those apps, Evernote, Google Drive, a couple of others, I'm going to blank on all the different apps, but we talked about the different apps, technology tools that could or could not help. And that conversation occurred in the community, it occurred in every one of our buildings. At the same time, we had a committee of teachers that met monthly. And we called them a technology advisory committee that talked about the shifts that we want to see happen in our classrooms and what kind of technology tools would support that. Because quite frankly, we didn't go into that talking about technology. We went into it talking about teaching and learning, and it evolved to a conversation about the tools that were going to be needed to make those shifts. That was a year-long conversation that continues to be going on. For 4 years now, I meet monthly with a group of students. More specifically secondary students, and there's a group of about 25 or 26 that have conversations with me each month, and they're coming with perspectives that you shared and having talked to their classmates. And we've talked about, 4 years ago we were talking about the iPad, and now we've shifted to talking about the Chromebook and how those tools would help them as they prepare. So we talk to folks all the time in the community, in our buildings, about any learning initiative. And this particular technology one, I'm confident that we've vetted to a number of folks. That was one. The second part of that question was about so we've been very clear. If folks, and I've been clear, and some folks haven't liked my answer to this question, and some folks have liked it. We will never, under my tenure, attach a technology initiative to a specific accountability metric. That's the wrong thing to do, because quite frankly, we don't talk about these things as technology initiatives. They're learning initiatives. We track more indicators here as far as achievement metrics than any other district I can find. And we track it in a very transparent, public way on our website. We track everything from graduation rates to levels of engagement, as you saw tonight. And across indicators, we've seen significant achievement gains across the board. Our graduation rate is one of the highest in the country as far as how far we've gone in 4 years. Our attendance rates, our discipline rates. So we're looking at multiple measures, not just one that's going to speak, because quite frankly, I've worked with schools, consulted with schools that are looking at a technology measure, and none of them are really good. We can put one out there just to appease some folks who want to see something that's connected to technology, but it really wouldn't be a true accountability measure. We have good achievement measures that we track, and they've all significantly been enhanced and gone up because of what we do with teaching and learning. And that last one was about college and career.
And how we measure that.
We measure college and career readiness in a number of ways. Going back to those indicators, we track college persistence rates. We started tracking those 3 years ago, and we've seen some significant increases from year to year. How many of our young people are staying in college once they enroll in college? How many of our young people are deciding to go to colleges, to two-year colleges? We have that kind of data. We're seeing significant achievement gains over the years. But again, attach the technology initiative to college and career readiness in a very quantitative way will be tough. We could do that, but I'd rather not. I can just say with all confidence, having spoken with many business leaders, that you can't walk into any career or into most universities now without having some proficiency with using digital tools. Think of a profession, anything in the financial industry, to the medical profession, to what we may be doing with our hands to help nurture food in our community. It's going to all come back to being able to be proficient using some digital tool. And if we weren't providing that access and that support, we wouldn't be preparing you for a career. And I wouldn't even go into the number of universities now that are requiring young people to come in with a device that they purchase. And some of you are probably, if they're seniors looking to get your credit, probably applying for schools that are requiring you to come into that first year experience with the device and be proficient. So yes, I feel that we're preparing young people, but I wouldn't put that in an accountability metric. It's all part of the new learning environment that we offer. How'd I do, team? Did I get all three?
I think you'd have to ask.
I would just add one more thing. The state has recently come out with a new list of college and career readiness skills. We had CDOS skills years ago, and they were revised, and that stuff will be informing the curriculum development. So that stuff will all be embedded in the curriculum as well.
right, thank you.
Obviously, very good questions. Anything else from the board? That kind of is actually a pretty good. Connor, go ahead.
You spoke about the equity mentor piece, and every building has at least one. Can you speak to the work they have been doing?
Equity mentors are a stipended position. Each school has one or two, and it's very building specific. But their goal is to lead activities or have some targeted conversations around issues of equity, race, culture, cultural responsiveness. How that plays out in the classroom, different classroom scenarios, those kinds of things. It's not like a set curriculum, it's not a set follow this sort of roadmap, but what the equity mentors do, they get together once a month as a group. Actually this year they've done something nice, and they get together in a different building each month. And they both share. This is the first part of the meeting, is sharing, like, this is what's working in our building right now, or we just led a faculty conversation about this. And then the second half of the meeting is they have a really hard conversation about some of the challenging events that have been happening in the country recently. They've had in the last few months some tough conversations around race and police and community and what's been happening in Ferguson and New York City and even here in Ithaca. So I always want to emphasize with this that it's not just like this set, every equity mentor delivers this piece of knowledge to every teacher. Equity mentors work with principals, they work with other teacher leaders in the building to talk about ways to engage the staff. The whole point of it is to have someone in a building, or more than one person in a building, to be a person that other staff can go to for resources, for kind of a reflective partner. And boy, something happened in class today that I wasn't expecting. A student brought up this issue. Do you have any resources? Do you have any advice for me? So that's kind of the goal of the program. It's always been a work in progress, but the teachers who do it bring a lot of passion to the work and a lot of leadership. And this year, just because of the stretched thin nature of this group right here, including myself, they've had several meetings where they're leading the meetings themselves and doing, all the sharing and agenda setting, and I just kind of come in at the end or the beginning just to check in and see how they're going. So I've been really impressed this year with the level of leadership that they've brought. But that's kind of in a nutshell. It's a little hard to describe because it's very building specific, but it's something that is in each building.
Anything else for the group? Certainly, this is a far different conversation than we had 5 years ago when we talked about professional development and really how are we spending the dollars, always around budget time, but really the very targeted approach of professional development where it is needed, obviously in the classroom, and where it is most useful. So it's really, it's been a total sea change, I would have to say, from my first experience when I was on the board. Some years ago, Dr. Brown, when we, around about this time of year, we started talking about professional development and how were we going to spend the taxpayers' dollars. So it's a tremendous job that you all have done, and I think we have a pretty good idea that the next new dollar for professional development, I think we know where you'd like it to go, and
it was reallocated dollar.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll hopefully have more clarity at the end of the month what that might look like, and as we work through the next few months. But tremendous job, and thanks for your time tonight.
Yeah, we would like to end by inviting you on January 30th. We have a kind of a detailed invitation going out to all staff that we're still working on a little bit. That'll probably go out later this week. And we'd love, if you're free at any point, especially in the morning is when a lot of the district-wide events will be happening, but we'd love to see you. The elementary folks will be at the Space at Green Star.
And what time?
They will be there from 8 to 10:30, and secondary folks will be starting up at about 8:45, not 9. in Cope.
ESPs will be starting at 8.
ESPs will be starting at 8 in Cope. So there'll be things in Cope, and we wanted to capture the morning for everybody, so we got a different space for elementary. But we'll send out a detailed invite, but we'd love to see you there. And for other things that sounded interesting to you, whether things is leading with ESPs, curriculum work, or some of the technology, just email any of us, and we'd love to have you at any of these things in the future too.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And Dr. Brown, any other business tonight? That was very informative. Any other business by board members? Anything?
Speaking of resources and funding and allocations, I just want to bring to everyone's attention that there is a parent group in Ithaca that is really trying to mobilize popular support in eliminating the gap elimination adjustment, and those are the SOS election boosters. They have a Facebook page. They're sending out emails. They're developing a petition. They're going to have a public presence at upcoming public events, concerts, the robotics open house. So please look into what you're doing, students. Bring this information home to your parents. As they point out on their website, as Brad's pointed out many times, we have a very, very limited window to try and let Albany know how important it is to try and get these needed funds back to our schools, back to our teachers, back to our students, and anything that you can do to support our fellow Ithacans working on this would be a great thing.
What's the name of the group again?
SOS Election Boosters. It was Save Our Schools, and they were a parent group who actually mobilized to help pass the budget override and the budget cap override, and they decided to just stay around and try to do more good things for our kids and our teachers.
Yeah. Excellent.
And our administrators.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the board.
Throw that
in that order.
Yeah, administration. Thanks, Pat. That's great. Anything else? Committee meetings are listed, and facilities committee moved to January 20th, correct? At 5:30, and then you can see the rest.
We have a policy committee meeting on Thursday, and that time has changed from 5 p.m. to 5:45 for all the many people who press in through our doors, eager to hear about changes to policy.
Oh, January 15th, I see that's right on the top. Okay, I almost looked beyond it. For some reason.
I cannot understand that.
Yeah. I think I have to wash my hair that night or something? Is that what I do? Yeah, so, but we would like to be there, but I'm not sure that we can.
Well, I'd like to be at facilities, but I think I have a conflict.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. But we will show up policy.
I'm pretty certain.
So are we good? Anything else? I'm not.
I move we adjourn.
No, thank you. I was waiting for that. So without objection, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.